neurologist at the laboratory, and I've also done some research out of the Veterinary Orthopedic Research Lab at UC Davis with Dr. Sue Stover. And what I'm presenting today is just a really brief example of some of the data that we generate from the horses that we get in and the reports that we write. I took just looks at numbers of spinal and pelvis fractures and then the limb fractures from these horses from 2005 to 2009 to simplify things. What I'd like to do today is to show you how what we can do with this data that we get from this program. I think it's a really great postmortem program that get a lot of information that we can use. And then hopefully display this data for you in simple charts, and then compare the injuries between the dirt, turf, and synthetic tracks, just on a limited number, or the most common fractures that we see. This is from my Southern California track numbers from 2005 to 2009. These are just the limited numbers that we've seen from just the tracks down here. It's like this track here, Santa Anita, Del Mar, Fairplex, and this is limited to the thoroughbred submissions. And in 2005, I take it we weren't using synthetic tracks yet, and so we don't have any numbers on the synthetic track in 2005, but these are the total submissions, and you can see what I think is happening, and I'm sure I'll find out later with Rick's and everybody else's presentation, that you're using the synthetic track more often and using the dirt less and less. And so I think that's what kind of explains that trend in the numbers. This is kind of some of the final counts of injuries that I was able to track. And it took me just about 2 days. If you broaden this into those horses per year, it takes quite a bit longer to get all this data. Even though we're using spreadsheets and everything, it still takes some human hours to kind of create these things. And so you end up with a lot of confusing things that we could actually look at, but what I'm trying to do today is simplify that. So the numbers of fractures, the top 5 fractures that we have, our proximal sesamoid bones are the number one most common fracture that we have in the thoroughbred racehorses, and those are in the forelegs. And then the 4 fetlock and humerus, carpal, and lateral condylar fractures are falling behind. And you can see from 2005, I've graded these different types of fractures here, and all the way up to 2009. This is just the raw data from the Southern California track. So these are just the numbers. We haven't done any kind of factoring the other variables, such as the actual race location, age of the horse, all those other variables that you can include in all the research that we are able to generate from here. Just looking at the top 2 types of fractures, the proximal sesamoid bone and the fetlock fractures by track surface, what you can see is, for my data, my data set that I was able to document, this was from 2005 to 2009. The 4 sesamoid, the proximal sesamoid bone fractures, you have 90 on the dirt and 62 on turf. The 4 fetlock fractures, that means it's a cannon bone fracture with either a proximal sesamoid bone fractures or a first phalanx fracture. So any one of those, basically it's 2 or more fractures occurring in the fetlock. So those are our top 2 most common fractures that we see out of the postmortem program. Lesser common ones, the humeral fractures, and then the carpal fractures and lateral condylar fractures. You can see my different values for those. And then even going further down into the less common injuries that we see, soft tissue injury means like a suspensory apparatus breakdown or a fetlock luxation, where bones aren't broken, but the supporting structures are lacerated. What we do have is some information on the rare fetlock, and tibia and fibula and rear phalanx injuries. Again, these are just the raw numbers that I got from the horses, the deceased horses we've received at the CAVS laboratory, and just for Southern California tracks. Unless I'm getting funded with grants or extra income to do more statistics on it or turn it over to an epidemiologist, what I really want to emphasize is just from a basic count of the number of horses we got in, thoroughbreds, and there's a whole lot of other things that we can factor into these.
Thank you very much.
Couple things. I'm going to speak about the CTT, and this is an important number. I'm not going to talk a lot, but we polled our membership about a month ago, and 70% of the trainers in Southern California wanted Santa Anita to take out their track and install a new and improved dirt track. So that's the raw data. We feel that, a lot of times we've been overlooked and our views haven't been heard. So I just want to say that that's the numbers. That's the numbers in Southern California, and it's pretty overwhelming. I'm just speaking for myself now. As far as injuries on synthetics, I've had probably just as many injuries on synthetics as I had on the previous tracks. The injuries are different. We have all these high suspensories now. We have the broken sesamoids. We have the tibias. We have the hind cannon bones breaking on these horses, and pelvises. I mean, I've had 4 or 5 pelvises on these synthetic tracks. So those are injuries we just didn't used to see. So from my perspective, we hope the CTT will be heavily involved in whatever they decide to do here at Santa Anita, and we'd like to have them work with us. And I'm just saying, don't overlook us, racetrack management, because we're the guys in the trenches and we're looking at these horses every day. And so I know we're going to get back to more of this stuff as we go on. I'm not going to go back and blame, what was done wrong in the past. We're just looking forward, and we'd like to see some changes in the surface here. And I think we can build this thing back up. Thank you.